Ever feel like you're just one or two phrases away from sounding like really fluent in English?
Yeah.
Well, we're diving into a podcast script today. It's called Fluent Conversations, and they say they found 15 of those magic words.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's not about, like, sounding super smart, right?
Right.
It's about that natural flow you hear, like, native speakers using, like, I can explain something perfectly, but it'll still sound like I'm reading it from a textbook.
Oh, for sure.
So to show us how it's done, this script has a conversation between these two friends, Emma and Jake.
Okay.
To show these words in action.
Okay, I like that.
And then it breaks down each word.
Gotcha.
Ready to eavesdrop.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Emma starts by saying, I ran into Sarah yesterday at the mall.
Okay.
Now Jake, he jokes that he pictures her, like, literally crashing into Sarah. Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's funny because run into is one of those phrases that doesn't translate literally, like it means to meet by chance.
Yeah.
But think about it. Doesn't it sound way more natural than just saying, I met Sarah?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, it's casual, right?
Yeah.
Off the cuff.
But I think there's, like, even more to it than just being casual.
Ooh, okay.
So choosing ran into instead of met, it kind of shows, like, a cultural preference.
Okay.
So in English, we often like to use more indirect language.
Huh.
Especially when we're talking about something that, like, we weren't expecting, like running into someone.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
There's so much packed into these, like, simple words.
For sure.
Okay, next phrase. Emma asks Jake, could you give me a hand with these boxes?
Okay.
Of course, Jake knows she just needs help, right?
Right.
Not a literal hand.
Uh-huh.
It's another example of this, like, indirect language thing.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely.
So give me a hand. It makes it sound nicer, right?
Yeah.
It's more like we're working together, not me demanding something.
Exactly.
It assumes that, like, we're already on good terms.
Right.
Interesting. So even when we're asking for help, English speakers, we like to beat around the bush a little bit.
Well, it's not really like avoiding the question. It's more about,
Okay.
being polite
Okay.
and not sounding too direct or demanding.
Makes sense. Okay, so then Emma says, we need to wrap up this meeting soon.
Okay.
So wrap up, I feel like this is one of those words that you can use all the time.
Oh, yeah.
In
Absolutely.
so many situations.
It works for meetings, projects.
Yeah.
Even just conversations.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool about this is it paints a picture in your mind, right?
Right.
It's like you're really tying everything up together. Yeah, I can almost see it.
Yeah, and I think because it's so visual like that, it makes it more memorable.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and easier to use.
Okay, next one. Emma says, I'll keep an eye on your bag while you get coffee.
Okay.
So it's more than just watching it, right?
Okay.
There's, like, responsibility there.
Yeah.
Like saying, I got you covered.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so effective. It's
Oh.
like there's that deeper meaning,
Yeah.
It's not just the words, but it shows the trust between Emma and Jake.
Okay, up next, Emma says, hang on, I need to grab my jacket before we go.
Okay.
It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
But, like, so important for every day.
Oh, yeah. I use it all the time.
Who hasn't yelled that running out the door?
Yeah.
But, like, it's friendly, right?
Yeah.
It's not like an order. It's just like, hey, wait a sec.
It's just a quick little, hold on.
Yeah.
And it also, like, it implies it'll be quick,
Yeah.
You're not asking for a lot.
Okay, now this next one, I feel this one in my soul.
Okay.
Emma says, I messed up my presentation, but my teacher was really understanding.
Oh, yeah.
Mess up. It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it doesn't sound as bad as, like, fail. Fail sounds so final.
Totally.
This is more like you tripped up, but you can recover.
Yeah. And it also shows that she's, like, taking ownership,
Yeah.
But without beating herself up too much about it.
Which is good life advice in general, I think.
Right.
Okay, now Emma asks Jake, can you drop me off at the bus station?
Mm-hmm.
Now this one's interesting
Oh, how so?
because it, like, kind of shows how we have certain social rules just with language.
Oh, boy.
Like, you wouldn't just ask a stranger to drop you off.
Right.
You kind of doing them a favor.
Yep.
It assumes you already go in that way, and you're cool with going a little out of your way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's way more natural than saying, like, can you please transport me to the bus station using your vehicle?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Okay, what does Emma say next? So Emma says, I'll check it out and let you know.
Okay.
It's like the perfect thing to say if you want to show you're interested.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's way better than just saying, like, okay,
Right.
you're actually going to, like, do something.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's simple,
Yeah.
it shows you're, like, thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Okay, then Emma mentions she has to come up with a good idea for our project.
Oh, yeah, this is something we can all relate to.
Ugh, tell me about it.
Whether it's for work
Mm-hmm.
or just, like, trying to figure out what to make for dinner.
Seriously.
It's that mental struggle. Like, you're trying to make something new.
Okay, next up, Emma gets excited and says, I'm looking forward to our trip next week.
Okay.
This one is just like pure excitement, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And it's cool how she brings Jake into it, by saying our trip.
Yeah.
It makes them like closer because they're both excited.
Okay, but then reality hits. Emma says, I need to figure out how to fix this problem.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Oh, for sure.
This just shows, like, you're not going to give up.
Right.
You're going to find a way to fix it.
Exactly.
So we already saw her mess up earlier, and now she says, I was late, but I made up for it by bringing coffee.
Oh, nice.
Smooth, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, you messed up, but you're going to make it right.
Yeah, it's like a little apology, but without actually saying sorry.
I like that.
It's like, you messed up, but you're trying to fix it.
Okay, then things get a little dramatic. Jake says he passed out from exhaustion.
Okay.
So it means to faint, right?
Yeah.
But by adding, like, from exhaustion,
right.
You really know how tired he must have been. Like, he couldn't stay awake.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting to the end of their conversation, and Jake says she showed up late to the party.
Okay.
So he's just saying what happened, right?
Right.
But showed up, it kind of sounds like he's, like, judging her a little.
Yeah, like it was her choice to be late.
Yeah.
Not something, that she couldn't control.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even a little word like that, it can show what you really think.
Okay, finally, Jake says, we had to put off our meeting until next week.
Mm.
I feel like this is so much nicer than saying we canceled.
Oh,
Like, it's not gone forever.
Right. It's just waiting for a better time.
Yeah, like we're still committed.
Exactly.
So that's all 15 words in action.
That was cool.
And remember, the podcast, we're deep diving into fluent conversations. They give you a challenge.
Oh, fun.
So they have 3 sentences.
Okay.
And you have to figure out which word fits best.
Okay.
First one, I link my keys, and now I can't find them anywhere.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
So relatable.
The perfect word is messed up.
Okay.
Because it's your fault, and you're like frustrated because of it.
Second challenge, I'll blank your dog while you're on vacation.
Okay.
So this one is all about taking care of something, right?
Right.
So the answer is keep an eye on. Much better than saying, like, I will supervise your canine.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Way too formal.
Okay. Last challenge, let's blank dinner until next week.
Okay.
So we're just moving it to later.
Yeah.
The best word here is put off. It's like hitting the pause button.
Exactly.
I love how, like, effortlessly those words fit into the sentences.
Yeah, it's like they were made for them.
And that's why it's so important to master these, like, everyday words.
Right.
Because they make you sound so much more fluent.
Exactly. It's like building blocks for your conversation.
So we learned a lot, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Just from those 15 words.
Right. And just like hearing them in a normal conversation.
It's kind of crazy how much we can pick up just from that.
It really shows you that like fluency isn't about, knowing every word in the dictionary.
Right.
It's more about like how you use those words to connect with someone.
To really get your point across.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what does this all mean for like our listener?
Well, it means they can like totally improve their fluency
Okay.
just by like looking at the phrases they use every day.
Yeah. Instead of just saying stuff without thinking.
Right. Like actually think about why you're using that word.
Okay. Yeah.
And like how it makes the other person feel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And if you can do that, you'll sound so much more natural.
And confidence is... So, okay, we get it. We got to use the right words. But like, how do we actually do that?
Good question. Well, I have a challenge, kind of like in the Fluent Conversations podcast.
Okay.
Think about some other simple phrases that you could start using today.
That would make us sound like more natural.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, but I think like one thing you could do is like pay attention when you're watching a movie.
Okay.
Or a TV show and see how they say things.
Oh, yeah, steal their lines, basically. And then like actually use them when you're talking to someone.
Right, don't be scared to try it out.
Yeah, and see what works, see what feels good.
Exactly, it's like a little experiment.
I love that.
We could even like all share what we find.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool.
Everyone can like learn from each other.
Because at the end of the day, language is about connecting with people, right?
Yeah, it's about like building relationships, sharing what you think.
Exactly.
And the better you are at English, the easier that is to do.
So true. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those conversations flowing.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, happy language adventures. All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling something that I know a lot of you have asked about. Phrasal verbs.
Yeah, these little combos can be tricky.
Oh, absolutely. But they're also the key to sounding, well, more natural, more fluent. We've got a whole bunch of resources here.
Yeah.
And we're going to break them down into everyday situations so they're easier to remember and to actually use,
It's all about making them practical.
Right. So let's kick things off with a scenario we all face, morning routines.
The daily grind.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, have you ever struggled with the whole wake up versus get up thing?
Oh, for sure. They seem interchangeable.
I know, right?
There's a subtle difference.
I hit sneeze like a million times before I actually, roll out of bed.
Well, think of it this way. Wake up is simply becoming conscious.
Okay.
Get up is the action, the physical getting out of bed.
Ah, so it's like consciousness versus action.
Ex-
That makes so much more sense. Okay, so let's say you've finally gotten up, you're going about your day. Have you ever found yourself running out of something, like coffee or time?
Oh, constantly.
I know, right? My coffee disappears in like 5 seconds.
Running out of really captures that feeling of depletion.
Yeah.
But, it could be applied to more than just physical things. Think about, like, projects at work. You can run out of steam on a project. That initial motivation just fizzles out. Or you can run out of options when you're facing a tricky dilemma.
I like that. So it's not just, running out of actual stuff. It's like a broader sense of, nothing left.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of running out of things, I have a confession. I was once so excited to meet some friends for a movie that I completely forgot to turn off the lights at home.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my electricity bill was not happy.
We've all been there. And while we usually use turn off for lights or appliances,
Right.
think about how it applies to emotions, too. You can try to turn off your anxiety
Okay.
or turn off those feelings of anger.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like controlling those internal switches.
So we've got a control panel of emotions.
Excited.
And sometimes, we just need to hit off.
Take charge.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the wonderful world of work and study. Emails, deadlines, those ever-growing to-do lists.
The joys.
So how do you usually catch up on work when you're, feeling behind? Sometimes I just end up staring at my computer screen, like completely overwhelmed.
I hear you. Catching up on definitely implies that feeling of being behind and trying to get back on track.
Yeah.
But what if, instead of seeing it as a burden,
Okay.
we saw it as a challenge, an opportunity to test our organizational skills?
I like that. A challenge, not a chore.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's say you're working on a big project and you need to make sure everything is, perfect. How important is it to look over things carefully before hitting that submit button? I've definitely learned that lesson the hard way a few times.
Oh, more times than I can count. Looking over isn't just glancing at something.
Right.
It's actively engaging with it, paying attention to the details. Actually, one time I was looking over a contract and almost missed this crucial clause buried in the fine print. It was a good reminder to be thorough.
Oh, wow. That's a close call. Sometimes I just wish I could call off all my meetings and escape the office for a bit.
I know, right?
Just take a walk, maybe grab a coffee.
But if we think about call off more broadly,
Okay.
it's not just about canceling meetings. It can be any planned event, a social gathering, a business trip, even a project that's just not working out.
So it's like hitting pause, reassessing, and then deciding whether to, keep going or change direction.
Exactly. Sometimes calling off something can be the most productive thing you can do.
Okay, enough about work. Let's talk about something more fun, like social interactions and relationships. Do you have someone in your life who you just totally click with, someone you really get along with?
Oh, absolutely. And getting along with someone goes beyond just liking them, right?
Yeah.
It's about mutual respect,
I
understanding,
like that.
and a shared sense of humor.
It's like, a dance where both partners are in sync.
And what's fascinating is getting along with someone doesn't mean you always agree. It's about navigating those differences, finding that sweet spot where everyone feels heard and valued.
So true. Sometimes things don't work out, though, and we have to, make that tough decision to break up with someone.
Breaking up is usually associated with romantic relationships.
Right.
But it can apply to friendships, partnerships.
Yeah, for sure.
Even breaking free from negative habits.
Oh, I like that. It's like recognizing when a connection, whatever kind it is, isn't working.
Yeah.
And having the courage to change it. Hopefully, though, if there are disagreements, we can make up and reconcile.
Absolutely. Making up signifies that restoration of harmony, willingness to forgive,
Yeah.
understand, and move forward together.
Now, have you ever been in a conversation where you needed to, steer the topic in a certain direction?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
I always feel so awkward doing that.
Well, that's where bringing up something strategically can be really helpful.
Okay.
It's about subtly guiding the conversation. For example, if you're at a networking event and you want to learn more about someone's work, you could casually bring up a recent industry trend
That's good.
or an article you read
Yeah.
as a way to spark a conversation.
That sounds so much smoother than just abruptly changing the subject.
A bit more graceful.
Speaking of social situations, another confession. I'm always late. Always showing up late, even when I try my best to be on time.
Oh, I feel that.
Once I was meeting friends for a concert, and I got stuck in traffic. By the time I arrived, they were already halfway through the opening act.
And showing up isn't just about physical arrival either.
Oh.
It's about making an appearance, whether it's at an event, in someone's life, even metaphorically, like when an opportunity suddenly shows up.
I never thought of it that way. So it can be both literal and figurative.
Exactly. It adds another layer of meaning.
Okay, let's talk about travel. You know that feeling of anticipation when you're about to set off on an adventure?
Oh, yeah, I love that feeling.
Whether it's a road trip, a flight across the ocean, even just exploring a new part of your city.
Yeah.
There's something so exciting about it.
Setting off really captures that sense of purpose,
Right.
that feeling of embarking on a journey.
And once you set off, chances are you'll be picking up or dropping off something along the way.
For sure, for sure.
Souvenirs, travel buddies, new experiences, who knows?
But picking up and dropping off aren't just for physical things either. Think about skills. You can pick up a new language while traveling,
That's true.
or maybe drop off some bad habits along the way.
It's like an exchange of both tangible and intangible things.
Exactly.
And speaking of travel, navigating public transport can be its own adventure, especially figuring out when to get on or get off.
Oh, tell me about it.
I once missed my stop because I was so engrossed in a book that I completely zoned out.
I've done that too.
Getting on and getting off represent transitions, right?
Yeah, entering or exiting a particular space or situation.
It's easy to get lost in your own world and miss those important cues. Well, we've covered quite a bit in this first part of our deep dive. Everyday routines, work, social interactions, even travel.
It's amazing how these phrasal verbs pop up everywhere.
They really do. And what's cool is they make our speech sound so much more natural and informal.
It's like they add flavor to our language.
Exactly. And I think what we're seeing is that using these phrasal verbs isn't just about sounding like a native speaker. It's about understanding those subtle nuances of English.
Right.
And using them to communicate more effectively.
It's about unlocking a whole new level of fluency. And I think our deep dive has just scratched the surface. It really is amazing. You know, how these little verbs and prepositions can add so much depth to the way we express ourselves.
Like, yeah, there are these hidden gems sprinkled everywhere in our conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't even realize it. So we've talked about how phrasal verbs show up in our daily routines, work, social stuff. But what about those unexpected situations?
Oh, yes.
You know, life throws a curveball.
Life is full of surprises.
Exactly. And it's amazing how phrasal verbs are perfect for describing those moments.
Yeah.
Have you ever had plans change suddenly?
Oh, all the time.
And you had to figure out a new solution, like right on the spot?
Oh, countless times.
I remember one time I was supposed to fly to a conference.
Yeah.
And my flight got canceled last minute. Total chaos. I had to figure out new travel arrangements while juggling everything else. It was a mess.
Figure out is like the ultimate problem-solving phrasal verb.
It is.
It implies adaptability.
Yeah.
You know, thinking on your feet.
Yeah, like our inner detective comes out.
Exactly.
Okay, what about those difficult situations?
Oh, yeah.
The ones that really test your patience, you know?
For sure.
Have you ever had to deal with something like that?
Well, dealing with something means confronting it head on.
Okay.
It's about like navigating those tough situations with grace. One time I had to deal with a huge setback at work, a project that just completely fell apart. It was stressful, but it definitely taught me about perseverance.
It's like those moments force us to level up our skills.
Right.
Become more resilient, you know?
Exactly.
Sometimes, though, when things get tough, we just want to back out. Have you ever felt that way?
Backing out could be a good move sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize a situation just isn't right for you anymore. Like it doesn't align with your goals
I see.
or your values.
So it's about knowing your limits
Yeah.
and making choices that are good for you.
I once backed out of a business partnership when I realized our visions weren't the same. It was a tough call, but it allowed me to find opportunities that were a better fit.
Sometimes you have to back out to let something better come in.
Exactly.
Now, when we're dealing with unexpected things, sometimes we need help.
For sure.
Have you ever had to reach out to someone for support?
Oh, absolutely. Reaching out is so important. It's acknowledging that we don't have to go through things alone.
Yeah.
It's about connection. You know, I went through a personal crisis once, and I was so hesitant to reach out to my friends.
Yeah, I get it.
But when I finally did, their support was incredible.
Sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable.
It is.
But it's in those moments when we reach out that real connection happens.
I completely agree.
Okay, let's shift gears again. When things get overwhelming, how do you calm down?
Oh, that's a good question. Calming down is about finding those things that help us regulate our emotions, right? For me, it's nature. A walk in the park, listening to birds,
I love that.
just feeling the sun.
Yeah.
It helps me reconnect with myself.
Nature has this amazing ability to soothe us, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Sometimes all it takes is a few moments of quiet to down and see things more clearly. Have you ever had to stand up for something you believe in?
Oh, absolutely. Standing up for something takes courage.
It does.
It's about advocating for what's right, even when it's hard. I once saw someone being treated unfairly, and I felt compelled to stand up for them.
That's so brave.
It wasn't easy, but it taught me about using my voice for good. And sometimes standing up for something means speaking out against injustice,
Right.
raising awareness about important issues.
It's like, yeah, each time we speak out, we plant a seed for change.
And those seeds can grow into powerful movements.
Okay, so we've talked about phrasal verbs for unexpected situations, challenges, even standing up for what's right.
Uh-huh.
But what about those moments of joy? The celebrations?
Oh, yeah, those are important too.
Phrasal verbs can add so much energy to those expressions, you know?
They can.
Have you ever had to cheer someone up?
Of course.
Like when a friend was going through a rough time,
Yeah.
you just wanted to brighten their day.
Cheering someone up is all about spreading kindness.
Like we have this superpower to make someone's day better.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, sometimes those acts of kindness lead to unexpected connections. Have you ever run into someone you knew just by chance?
All the time. Running into someone unexpectedly can be so fun.
It can.
Like these serendipitous encounters.
It really is.
I ran into a former colleague at a coffee shop once,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up talking for hours.
It's like the universe is playing matchmaker.
Sometimes it feels that way.
Have you ever had a dream or a goal that you were really hoping would work out?
Working out implies that sense of effort, the perseverance to reach a goal. I always wanted to write a book.
Wow.
And I spent years working on it, facing rejection after rejection. But I kept going, and eventually it all worked out.
That's incredible.
The book got published. It was amazing.
It shows that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Yeah.
And when things finally work out, it make all the effort worth it. Spoop of things working out. Have you ever had an idea or a plan that suddenly came together perfectly?
Oh, I love that feeling. Coming together implies that sense of harmony.
Yeah.
When everything just clicks. I was working on this complex project once.
Uh-huh.
And we were hitting roadblocks left and right.
I've been there.
But then we started communicating better, collaborating more.
Okay.
And suddenly it all came together. We achieved our goals, and it was a real testament to teamwork.
It's like when individual efforts create something much bigger, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes that coming together goes beyond teams and projects.
It does.
It's like communities uniting for a cause.
Yeah.
Or even global movements working towards a better world.
It's a beautiful thing.
We've covered so much ground in this part of our deep dive. Phrasal verbs for unexpected situations, celebrations, making a difference. It's really incredible how these little verbs and prepositions can add so much nuance to our language.
And what's really exciting is that this is just a glimpse.
Yeah.
There are so many more phrasal verbs out there to explore.
Right.
It's a reminder that learning a language is a journey that never ends.
It's incredible how phrasal verbs manage to sneak into every part of our lives.
They really do.
We've talked about everyday stuff, work, relationships,
Yeah.
even dealing with the unexpected.
Uh-huh.
But there's one area we haven't touched on yet, our thoughts, ideas, that whole internal world,
Right. It's fascinating how phrasal verbs help us express those things.
They do. How do we even talk about those mental processes without them?
Exactly. It's like they give us a language for thinking. Think about when you're trying to think something through before making a big decision.
Oh, tell me about it. I overthink everything. I'll mull it over for days, weighing the pros and cons, imagining all the possibilities. It's exhausting, but I think it's important to, give those big decisions the time they need.
I agree. And it's interesting how you used both think something through and mull it over. They both involve deep thought. But mull it over suggests a more passive process, like letting an idea simmer in the back of your mind.
So mulling it over is like slow cooking a decision until it's perfect.
Exactly. But sometimes mulling isn't enough. Sometimes you need to actively work something out.
Right, yeah.
That implies a more focused problem-solving approach.
Okay, so it's like shifting from relaxing to okay, gotta figure this out.
Exactly. And sometimes when we're working something out,
Yeah.
it's helpful to look back on past experiences, to see what we can learn from them.
Looking back on our past can be really insightful, can't it?
It can. It's like using our past as a guide. I often find myself looking back on my career choices, the good and the bad. And it helps me appreciate how much I've learned and grown.
It's like our past becomes this compass.
Yeah.
But we're still the ones steering the ship.
Exactly. Now, sometimes when we're trying to understand something new,
Yeah.
we need to break it down into smaller pieces, right?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's something complicated.
Breaking something down is all about simplifying,
Right.
making things easier to grasp.
Okay.
As a teacher, I do this all the time. You have to break down complex ideas for students.
Yeah.
Find ways to make them relatable.
It's like you're guiding them on this learning journey.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes that journey involves looking at things from different perspectives.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Especially when we're stuck in our own way of thinking.
Looking at things from different angles is so important for critical thinking. It's about challenging our assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I had a disagreement with a colleague once,
Mm-hmm.
and we were both so focused on our own viewpoints.
Yeah, I've been there.
But then we tried to look at the situation from each other's perspective. We didn't have to agree,
Right.
but it helped us understand each other better.
It's amazing how just shifting our perspective can like open up a whole new understanding, you know?
It can, and that understanding can lead to coming up with new ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up with new ideas is all about creativity, you know?
Yeah.
It's those moments when inspiration strikes. You know, some of my best ideas have come from unexpected places,
Really?
like a chat with a friend or just observing nature.
I like that.
It's about staying curious and open.
Those aha moments. And sometimes those aha moments help us come into our own, you know?
Exactly. Coming into your own means embracing your strengths,
Right.
finding your voice,
Oh, fair.
living authentically. You know, I spent years trying to fit in, but then I realized I needed to embrace what makes me unique. That's when I truly came into my own.
It's a powerful message. Accepting yourself, celebrating your individuality. It makes me think about language itself, you know?
Yeah.
It's always evolving, coming into its own. New words, new meanings.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. Well, we've explored phrasal verbs in so many different ways.
We have.
Everyday life, work, relationships, the unexpected, even our thoughts and dreams.
And it's just the beginning.
Right. It's amazing how these little verb and preposition combos can add so much depth to our language.
They really are powerful tools for communication.
They are. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Think about the phrasal verbs you use. How do they shape the way you see the world? And how can you use them to express yourself more fully and connect with others in a meaningful way? Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those ha moments coming. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Ever get that feeling you might be using a word wrong, but you're too afraid to ask?
Oh, yeah.
Well, fear no more. Because today we're diving deep into 15 words that even fluent English speakers mess up. We've got a YouTube script here all about leveling up your vocabulary. And you might be surprised by some of these common mistakes.
It is fascinating, though, how some of these errors stem from subtle distinctions that are easy to miss in casual conversation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with some beginner traps. Words that seem straightforward, but can be surprisingly tricky. I'll be honest, the word literally is one I hear misused all the time.
Yep.
Just the other day, someone told me they were literally dying from how much they had to do that week.
Ah, yes. Literally seems to be a word that's been taken hostage by hyperbole.
So remind us, what should literally mean? Why is it important to use it correctly?
Literally means something actually happened, exactly as stated.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the reality of a situation, not an exaggeration.
Right.
While your friend might have felt overwhelmed, they weren't literally dying.
Right.
You see, using literally correctly makes sure your words carry their intended weight. It's about precision and clarity, especially in an age where misinformation can spread so easily.
That's a really good point. The impact on communication is huge. Okay, another beginner word that trips people up is unique. I once saw a store advertising a sale on very unique items. Something about that just felt off.
That's because unique means one of a kind.
Right.
Inherently special. It stands alone.
Right.
So adding modifiers like very or quite is redundant and actually weakens the impact of the word.
So instead of saying something is very unique, how can we highlight that specialness in everyday conversation?
Let the word unique speak for itself.
Okay.
You could say that painting is truly unique or her style is unique. You're emphasizing the inherent specialness without needing to qualify it further.
That's so interesting. I can see how that subtle shift makes a big difference. Even these beginner words have hidden depths. You really have to think about their true meaning.
Absolutely, and that's what makes language so fascinating. Now, prepare to have some assumptions challenged because some words have meanings completely different from what most people assume.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example of one of these words.
Let's start with irony.
Okay.
Many people confuse irony with simple coincidence or bad luck. For example, someone might say, "It's so ironic that I won the lottery and then got hit by a car."
So winning the lottery and then getting hit by a car, that's just bad luck, not irony.
Yeah.
What makes a situation truly ironic?
True irony involves a situation where the outcome is the opposite of what was expected, often with a humorous or sarcastic undertone. A classic example would be a fire station burning down. It's not just about unfortunate timing, it's about a surprising reversal of expectations.
Wow, that makes so much sense. It's not just about something bad happening. It's about the unexpected nature of the situation.
You see, understanding irony helps us analyze situations more deeply. It's not just about bad luck. It's about recognizing the unexpected and sometimes absurd nature of life.
Speaking of unexpected twists,
Yeah.
let's talk about a word. Often misused in situations with high stakes. Alibis. I feel like I hear people using alibi as a synonym for any kind of excuse.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have a good alibi.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common mistake. People might say, "I didn't finish the project, but I have a good alibi."
Wait, so if it's not just any excuse, what makes a real alibi? I'm genuinely confused.
An alibi has a very specific legal meaning.
Okay.
It refers to proof that someone was somewhere else at the time a crime was committed, demonstrating their innocence. It's not just any excuse. It's evidence that clears someone of suspicion.
So using alibi to explain why you didn't finish a project wouldn't really make sense.
Exactly. Using alibi in casual conversation when you simply mean excuse can actually undermine your credibility. It shows a lack of precision in your language.
Okay, this is making me rethink how I use these words. What other intermediate words are lurking out there, ready to trip us up?
How about a word that's often confused with its near opposite? Disinterested. Many people use disinterested to mean uninterested or bored. For instance, someone might say, "I was completely disinterested in that meeting."
Disinterested. If it doesn't mean bored or uninterested, then what does it actually mean?
Disinterested actually describes someone who is impartial or unbiased, free from personal stake or interest in a situation. A good example would be a judge who must remain disinterested in the outcome of a case.
Okay.
They can't be swayed by personal opinions or biases.
So if I wanted to say that I found the meeting boring, disinterested wouldn't be the right word to use.
Precisely. In that case, uninterested or bored would be more accurate.
Right.
Disinterested implies neutrality and objectivity. It's about being impartial, not uncaring.
I never realized how a single word could completely change the tone and meaning of a sentence. It's all about understanding those subtle but powerful nuances.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to explore. Are you ready to be bemused by the next word?
Bemused. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What's so tricky about this one?
People often think bemused means amused or entertained.
Okay.
You might hear someone say, "I was bemused by his silly jokes."
So if bemused doesn't mean amused, then what's the real meaning?
Bemused actually means puzzled, bewildered, or even slightly confused. Think of it as a state of mild perplexity, for example. You might be bemused by a riddle you can't solve.
Huh?
Or a strange event you don't fully understand.
So it's not about laughing at a joke. It's about that feeling of, wait, what just happened? That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine someone watching a magic trick.
Right.
Their brow furrowed, a slight smile playing on their lips.
Yeah.
That's bemusement. It's not amusement, but a fascinated perplexity.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand the difference.
Uh-huh.
Bemused is a much richer word than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that space between amusement and confusion.
Exactly. And these subtle distinctions can make a big difference in how your message is received. Are you ready for our final intermediate word?
Bring it on. I'm ready to tackle anything.
All right. Let's explore a word that's often misused to describe something grand or impressive. Enormity. People often use enormity to emphasize the sheer size or scope of something. You might hear someone say, "I was overwhelmed by the enormity of the project."
That's how I usually use it. But I have a feeling it doesn't quite mean what I think it means. What's the real meaning?
While enormity can relate to size, its primary meaning leans towards something more serious and weighty.
Okay.
It often refers to extreme wickedness, outrageousness, or the sheer gravity of a situation.
Right.
Particularly in a moral or ethical context.
So it's less about physical size and more about the weight of the implications.
Precisely. For instance, if you were discussing a horrific crime, you might speak of the enormity of the act to emphasize its moral depravity and the severity of its consequences.
Wow, that puts the word in a whole new light. It's not just about something being big, it's about something being profoundly impactful, often in a negative sense.
Exactly. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already. And I'm starting to feel the enormity and the true sense of the word, of all these linguistic nuances. What's next on our journey?
Next, we'll be venturing into the realm of advanced words, where the nuances become even more intricate. Are you ready to level up your vocabulary even further?
Absolutely. I'm eager to see what other linguistic gems await us in this deep dive into words.
Right.
It'd be great.
Awesome. Fasten your seatbelts, because these advanced words can be real brain twisters. They're the ones that often pop up in intellectual discussions or professional settings, and misusing them can unfortunately make you sound less credible.
Okay, I'm ready to face the advanced word challenge head on. Let's start with one that I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Decimate.
Decimate is fascinating because its common usage has drifted quite far from its original meaning. People often use it as a synonym for completely destroy, like saying the hurricane decimated the coastal towns. Yeah, I've definitely heard it used that way. But if it doesn't mean to completely destroy, then what does it actually mean?
Decimate has a very specific historical root. It comes from the ancient Roman practice of punishing mutinous troops by killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers. So the original meaning of decimate is to reduce by 1/10, not to obliterate completely.
Wow, I had no idea. That's a pretty grim origin story for a word. So using decimate to describe the total destruction of a town wouldn't be quite right.
Exactly. It's a case of hyperbole overtaking precision. While the impact of a hurricane can be devastating, it's unlikely to literally reduce a town's population by exactly 1/10.
This is why I love these deep dives. You uncover these hidden layers of meaning that we often miss in everyday conversation. It's like learning a secret code.
This word's bloody history reminds us that language carries the weight of the past. Even today, decimate suggests a severe calculated reduction, not total destruction.
Okay, what other advanced words are waiting to be decoded?
Let's tackle one that often gets misused in academic circles: peruse.
Peruse. I'll admit I've been guilty of using this one incorrectly myself. I always thought it meant to quickly skim through something.
That's a very common misconception. In reality, peruse means to read thoroughly and carefully. It implies a close and attentive examination of a text, not a hasty glance.
So if I said I perused the report before the meeting, it would mean I'd given it a very close read, not just skim the headings.
Precisely. Using peruse correctly conveys a sense of diligence and attention to detail. It suggests you've really absorbed the information.
This is another one of those aha moments. I'm realizing that using these advanced words correctly can signal a certain level of intellectual rigor. It shows you're not just skimming the surface.
Exactly. It's about choosing words that accurately reflect the depth of your engagement with the topic.
All right, bring on the next advanced word challenge. I'm feeling more and more confident with each one we tackle.
Let's see if you can crack the code on this one. Nonplussed.
Nonplussed. This one seems tricky. I've heard it used to describe someone who's calm and collected under pressure. Like, even though the presentation went wrong, she remained nonplussed.
That's a clever guess. But it's actually the opposite. Nonplussed describes a state of being surprised and confused, often to the point of speechlessness. It's that feeling of being caught off guard and unsure how to react.
Wow. So it's almost like being speechless with shock.
Exactly. Nonplussed implies a momentary loss of composure, a sense of being bewildered. It's that deer in the headlights feeling.
That makes so much more sense. I can see how misusing this word could lead to some awkward situations.
Indeed, it highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of these advanced words. They can have a big impact on how our message is perceived.
Okay, what other advanced word adventures await us? I'm ready to expand my vocabulary horizons.
Let's explore a word that often gets used in a way that diminishes its true impact. Plethora.
Plethora.
I usually think of this word as meaning a lot of something. In a positive way, like there was a plethora of fun activities to choose from at the festival. That's a common interpretation. But plethora carries a slightly different nuance. While it does mean an abundance of something, it often implies an excessive or overwhelming amount.
Okay.
It can sometimes even suggest a sense of burden or inconvenience.
Interesting. So it's not just about having a lot of something. It's about having maybe too much of it, like it's overflowing.
Precisely. Imagine a situation where you're bombarded with information or faced with an overwhelming number of choices. That sense of being inundated can be captured by the word plethora.
So if I were to say, I have a plethora of emails to respond to, it would imply that I'm feeling a bit swamped by them. Not necessarily excited about having a full inbox.
Exactly. It's about that tipping point where abundance starts to feel like excess. It's about that too much of a good thing feeling.
I'm starting to see how using plethora correctly can add a layer of sophistication to my descriptions. It's a much more nuanced way of expressing abundance than just saying a lot.
It's about choosing words that convey not just the quantity, but also the impact of that quantity.
This is making me realize how much I've taken these words for granted, what other advanced words are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be understood.
Let's delve into one that's often misused in discussions about facts and information.
Factoid.
Factoid. This one seems pretty straightforward. I always thought it just meant a small or trivial fact.
That's how it's commonly used, but its original meaning is a bit more nuanced, even controversial. The term factoid was actually coined to describe something that appears to be a fact, but is actually false or unsubstantiated.
Right, really? That's a completely different meaning.
That's the risk with using factoid in its original sense. It implies a degree of skepticism or even doubt about the validity of the information being presented. It can be a way of highlighting that something may sound like a fact, but it hasn't actually been proven true.
This is a perfect example of how language can evolve and shift in meaning over time. It's important to be aware of both the common usage and the original intent behind a word. You're absolutely right. Language is a living, breathing thing that constantly adapts and changes. Our goal is to be aware of those changes and use words in a way that is both accurate and effective.
So how can we use factoid in a way that doesn't accidentally spread misinformation?
If you're unsure of the accuracy of a piece of information, it's best to avoid using factoid altogether. You could say something like, here's an interesting tidbit, or this might be a bit of trivia, but this avoids any implication that the information might be false.
That's really helpful advice. Okay, bring on the next advanced word. I'm ready to conquer some more linguistic complexities.
Let's tackle a word that often causes confusion in discussions and debates. Moot.
Moot? I've always thought of this word as meaning irrelevant or pointless. Like that argument is moot because the decision has already been made.
That's a common understanding, but it's not entirely accurate. While moot can relate to something that's no longer relevant, its original meaning is a bit more nuanced. It originally referred to a matter that is open for debate or discussion.
So if a topic is moot, it's not necessarily pointless. It just means there's room for further discussion or consideration.
Precisely. Imagine a legal case where the circumstances change, making the original point of contention no longer relevant to the outcome. The issue might be considered moot, not because it was unimportant, but because it's no longer central to the case.
That's a really helpful clarification. So it's less about the topic being irrelevant and more about its significance having shifted or diminished.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that the context has changed, and the original point of debate may no longer be the primary focus.
I'm definitely feeling more enlightened than moot after tackling that one. What other advanced word adventures await us?
Let's wrap up our exploration of advanced words with a pair that often trips people up: infer and imply.
Infer and imply. The classic conundrum. I know these words are related to drawing conclusions, but I often mix them up.
It's a common confusion. The key difference lies in who is doing the action. The speaker or writer implies something, meaning they suggest or hint at something without stating it directly. The listener or reader infers something, meaning they draw a conclusion based on what is implied.
So if I were to say, it's getting late, I might be implying that it's time to go, even though I haven't explicitly said so.
Exactly. And if you, as the listener, understood my implication, you would have correctly inferred my meaning.
I see. So it's a two-way street. The speaker sends out a subtle signal, and the listener picks up on that signal and draws a conclusion.
Precisely. It's like a subtle dance of communication where meaning is conveyed through suggestion and interpretation.
This distinction is so subtle, but it's crucial for clear communication. Misusing these words can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings.
Absolutely. Mastering the difference between infer and imply is essential for navigating conversations and interpreting written texts accurately. It's about understanding both sides of the communication equation.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's amazing how much depth and complexity there is to these seemingly simple words.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But I hope you're starting to see how understanding the nuances of language can empower you to communicate with greater clarity and precision.
I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about using these words correctly. It's like a whole new world of linguistic possibilities has opened up.
And that's the beauty of language learning. It's an ongoing journey of discovery and refinement. Are you ready for a quick challenge to test your newfound knowledge?
Absolutely. Bring it on. All right. Hit me with that word challenge. I'm ready to put my knowledge to the test.
Okay. Let's see if you can recall the true meaning of nonplussed. Without looking back at our discussion, take a moment to think about it.
Okay. No peeking. I think I've got it. Nonplussed means to be surprised and confused, almost to the point of speechlessness. It's like that feeling of being completely thrown off guard and not knowing how to react.
That's absolutely correct. You've successfully decoded nonplussed. It seems our deep dive has truly expanded your vocabulary horizons.
I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. This whole experience has been eye-opening. I've realized that using words correctly isn't just about sounding smart. It's about communicating effectively and ensuring that my message is understood.
It's about wielding the power of language with precision and care. Choosing words that accurately reflect not only what we want to say, but also the subtle nuances of meaning we wish to convey.
You know, it's funny because I used to think that vocabulary was just about memorizing definitions. But this deep dive has shown me that it's so much more than that. It's about understanding the history, the etymology, the subtle shades of meaning that make each word unique.
It's about recognizing that words are not static, but dynamic. They evolve over time, their meanings shifting and adapting to reflect the changing world around us.
And that's what makes language so fascinating. It's a living, breathing entity that connects us to the past, informs our present, and shapes our future.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to continue exploring the fascinating world of language. Pay attention to the words you use, the words you encounter, and the way they impact your understanding of the world.
I know I will. This has been such a rewarding journey. I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for the power of words and the importance of using them correctly.
Remember, language is a gift, a tool that allows us to connect, create, and inspire. Let's use it wisely.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Happy wordsmithing. Okay, so let's be real for a sec. Small talk, right? It can be like the most awkward thing ever. Like when you're stuck in a situation and you know you should be chatting, but your mind just goes blank. Anyone else? Feel me on that. But get this. What if I told you that this deep dive could actually turn that dread into pure confidence? And we're going to do it using a source you'd never expect. A video script, get this, for people learning English.
I know, right? Sounds a little out there. But seriously, this script is full of stuff that goes way deeper than just language. It's like a secret masterclass in how humans connect, hidden inside an English lesson.
Okay, I gotta admit, when you first mentioned this source, I was kind of like, how can something for total beginners help someone who's already fluent?
That's fair, totally. But the cool thing here is, by breaking small talk down into these simple steps, it actually shows you the psychology behind how we connect. Like, it's a cheat sheet for building rapport, even if you never needed help with English in the first place.
So it's more about understanding the, deeper game, not just memorizing lines.
Exactly. For example, the script makes a big deal about greetings and weather talk, stuff we might think is just filler.
Yeah, I always thought that stuff was kind of pointless.
Right. But they actually serve a super important purpose. Like, humans are literally wired to bond over shared experiences.
Okay.
Even something as simple as complaining about the heat or, whatever the weather's doing.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see that.
It creates that instant common ground, that we're in this together feeling, which is huge for starting any kind of connection.
Wow, that's actually so true. I never thought about it that way.
And the script goes even further. Instead of those boring old greetings like, "Hi, how are you?" it gives you phrases that fit the specific situation so you get a better response.
Oh, I like where this is going. Give me an example.
So say you're at a party. Instead of that robotic, "Hi, how are you?" try something like, "What brings you here?"
Way more interesting, right?
Way more. It's like you're actually interested, not just saying words. Exactly. It shows you're paying attention and they actually get to share something about themselves. It's what they call a strong bid in, like conversation analysis stuff. Each thing we say is a bid to connect.
Ooh, I'm digging this bidding concept. So we're all just out here trying to make the strongest bid to connect.
Totally. And this script is giving us all the winning moves. Another one they have is, instead of just saying nice weather, you could say something like, "This weather's crazy, right?"
It's like inviting the other person in on the joke. I like it.
Oh.
So it's making small talk feel, I don't know, less robotic. But what really stood out to me was the role-playing part.
Ah, yes. That's where the magic really happens. The people who made this script, they get it. Knowing the right words isn't enough. You got to actually practice using them. And role-playing is the best way to do that.
But what if you don't have someone to practice with? Isn't that kind of, I don't know, weird to do alone?
For sure. But you can totally do it in your head. It's called mental rehearsal. Basically, you just picture yourself in different situations.
Hold on. So you're saying by just imagining myself rocking these small talk moments, I'm actually getting better at it in real life?
You got it. Might sound a little strange, but neuroscientists have found that when you rehearse something mentally, your brain fires up the same way it does when you're actually doing the thing.
No way. That's so cool. It's like training your brain for social situations, like a cheat code for confidence. I'm already feeling less terrified about networking events or, just parties in general.
It's crazy, right? How powerful our brains are. Like, this script really shows you how to use that power to, level up your social skills.
I like that, level up. So we've talked about greetings, weather talk, even practicing in your head. What else does this script have up its sleeve?
Okay, so one thing that really impressed me was the questions. They go way beyond those typical boring questions like, where are you from? Or what do you do? The usual suspects.
Yeah, those can be so snooze fest sometimes.
Right. Instead, they give you all these questions that are actually interesting, designed to, spark real conversations.
Okay, I'm all about those real conversations. Tell me more. Give me the good stuff.
So instead of asking, what do you do? Which can feel kind of like a job interview, they suggest asking, what do you like to do for fun?
I mean, that's a classic for a reason, right? It gets people talking about what they're actually passionate about.
Exactly. It's like you're inviting them to show you their real selves, not just their LinkedIn profile. And if you really want to go deeper, you could try something like, what's the most interesting thing you've done lately?
Ooh, I like that one. It's like a sneak peek into their adventures. You might even discover you have some cool stuff in common.
Totally. Plus, it shows you're actually curious about them, not just trying to fill the silence. And they even have specific questions for different situations. Like, if you're at a dinner party, you could ask, have you tried any good restaurants lately?
Perfect. Everyone loves talking about food. Instant conversation starter, right there.
It's true. It's something we can all relate to, like enjoying a good meal. Okay, so we've covered greetings, weather talk, asking interesting questions, even mental rehearsal. But what about when you're ready to, make your escape? Does the script help with that too?
Yeah, like how do you end a conversation without being rude?
Don't worry, they got you covered. They have a bunch of different closing phrases depending on the situation. From a simple, it was nice talking to you, to something more like, hey, we should grab coffee sometime.
Oh, I love that they include those follow-up suggestions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really do click with someone, and it's good to have a way to, keep things going.
Exactly. It shows you're confident and interested, which is always a good look. And even if they can't meet up, it still leaves a good impression. They'll remember you as someone who actually wanted to connect.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed, right? You never know where those initial conversations might lead. What about those times when you just need a quick, casual exit, though, like you're running late or something?
No problem. They have those too. They suggest things like, catch you later or have a great day. Those are perfect for keeping it light and friendly without feeling like you have to, hang around forever.
Okay, so whether you're aiming for a lifelong friendship or just a quick chat, it sounds like this script has given us a whole toolbox for navigating the social world.
Yeah. It's like they took all the guesswork out of small talk and gave us a clear path to follow. It's pretty amazing.
And what's so cool is that this script, even though it's for people learning English, it actually shows us some really deep things about human connections, like a reminder that we all want to feel understood, even in those little everyday conversations.
So true. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. We're not just learning phrases, we're learning about what makes us human and how even a short conversation can make a difference, create a ripple effect.
It's like we're seeing the world through a whole new lens now, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the best part, putting it all into practice. We've talked about a lot today, the different phases of small talk, how to make a bid for connection, even practicing in your head. But now it's your turn, dear listener. Take these ideas and make them your own.
Yes. This is where the real transformation happens. We've given you the tools. Now it's up to you to use them. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. The goal isn't to become some kind of small talk robot.
Exactly. Be yourself, be genuine, and use these techniques to connect with people in a real way. So let's recap the top 3 things we've learned from this unexpected deep dive into, mastering small talk. First, small talk isn't just random. There's a structure you can follow to make those conversations flow.
Second, the words you use actually matter. This script has given us tons of phrases that are interesting, thoughtful, and perfect for different situations.
And third, practice, practice, practice. Whether you're practicing in your head or even role-playing with a friend, the more you do it, the more confident and natural you'll become.
It really is like freeing, right?
Yeah.
Knowing you have these tools, it takes away that fear of like messing up or saying the wrong thing.
For sure. It's like having this, I don't know, secret weapon for social situations. And honestly, the biggest thing I'm taking away from this is small talk doesn't have to be something you dread. It can actually be like fun, a way to connect with people,
100%. What about you? What's sticking with you from all this? What did you find most helpful from looking at this script?
It's funny. I think what resonated most was realizing that everyone, even people who seem super outgoing, they've probably felt that awkwardness too. This script shows that small talk is a skill, like something you can learn and get better at, just like anything else.
Right. It's not like some people are born knowing how to do it and others aren't.
Exactly. It takes so much pressure off. You can just approach those conversations with curiosity, like a little game. Just see what happens.
I love that. A little game. It really can be like an adventure.
Yeah.
Discovering something new about someone, even if it's just a tiny thing.
And it reminds you that even those small moments, a quick chat, a smile, they can all make a difference. It's like we're all connected in this big web, and every conversation adds to that,
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, well, the surprisingly interesting world of small talk, I want to leave you with this. Think about the next time you are in a situation where you know there's going to be some small talk. Maybe it's a party or a work event, even just grabbing coffee. What are you most excited to try out from all the stuff we talked about?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
And hey, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Just be yourself, be genuine, and see what happens. You might be surprised how fun and even meaningful those small conversations can be. So go out there and conquer the world of small talk. We believe in you.
Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're going to be exploring, well, actually, your English learning journey using a script for a video for English language learners. It's going to be like a deep dive within a deep dive, really. So no matter where you're at, beginner, advanced, somewhere in between, there should be something here for you.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how this script uses like real stories from other people learning English, to like inspire. It's like we're all on this journey together,
Totally. And speaking of journeys, the script like starts off by asking this big question, right? What made you want to learn English in the first place? The why behind your adventure, basically. They give this example of a learner, Anna, and her goal was she just wanted to watch TV, like without subtitles. And what I thought was so cool about that was like, it was totally, coming from her, like she just wanted to do it, not because someone told her she had to or anything.
Right.
Like those are the best reasons,
Right.
when it comes from inside.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing your why can really make a difference, I think, especially when things get tough, When you hit a wall, you just don't feel like studying. It's like having a compass to keep you, heading in the right direction.
I love that, the compass. So I'm curious, what was your why, when you started out? Take a second to think about that. It's worth, revisiting it as you keep going too. Now, the script also digs into how, like, where you are can affect your learning. It gets that not everyone can be like surrounded by English speakers all the time, but it kind of challenges us to get creative.
Yeah. This story about Raj really stuck with me. He lives in this village where literally no one speaks English. And so he basically turned his whole house into this like learning tool, sticky notes everywhere, using English for like everyday stuff. It just proves you don't have to be in some English speaking country to learn it well.
It's amazing, right? Talk about resourcefulness. He didn't wait for the perfect situation. He just made it himself. And this actually leads perfectly into what the script talks about next. How to, take all that time we waste and turn it into learning time.
Oh yeah, like when you're scrolling on your phone or whatever and it's not even like fun anymore.
Exactly. But imagine if you could use that time to learn instead. The script mentions Maria, and she would spend like 30 minutes every night on, I think it was TikTok, and she swapped that for English learning videos, and guess what? In just a couple of weeks, her vocabulary like exploded.
Wow.
See? Totally doable. And what's even cooler is you can do this throughout your day, right? Like when you're commuting, waiting in line, even just doing chores. You can listen to podcasts, use apps, just sneak in little bits of English here and there.
Yeah. Just make it a part of your life,
Yeah.
The more you can do that, the more natural it all feels.
Exactly. The script then kind of switches gears and talks about common mistakes that can, slow you down. And this is where I think your expertise is going to be so helpful. One of the first things it mentions is like getting too hung up on grammar to the point where you're not even really speaking. It's easy to just memorize all the rules, but language is really about talking to people, right?
Absolutely. Grammar's important, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. But sometimes I think it gets too much focus, Like, it's more important to be able to speak fluently and confidently, even if you mess up a little. It's about finding that balance, I think. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with that. You could know all the grammar in the world, but if you can't have a conversation, what's the point, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like you learn how to play an instrument, but then you never actually play any music.
Exactly. You just practice scales all day long.
Mm.
Okay, so the script's next point, I think this is something we've all dealt with, being scared to make mistakes. I mean, every language learner goes through that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think it's so important to, change how we think about mistakes. They're not like failures. They're actually like feedback.
Yeah.
Each mistake is a chance to learn and get better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It takes the pressure off, And this kind of leads into the third mistake they talk about in the script, which is not practicing regularly. We've all been there, right? Like crazy study sessions and then nothing for weeks.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's always better to do a little bit every day than a lot all at once.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't go to the gym once a month for 8 hours and expect to see results. You got to be consistent.
So true. Short, consistent workouts, that's the key. Like the script mentions this learner who went from like these huge study sessions every now and then to just doing 30 minutes a day every day. And they saw way more progress.
It's amazing, right? How much difference just a little bit each day can make.
Yeah.
Our brains, they actually learn better that way too, through repetition and like slow exposure, not cramming.
So instead of trying to do it all at once, just find little ways to fit English into your day, right?
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and look at what the script says about, learning English if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
Which can feel like a huge obstacle, but the script has some pretty encouraging examples.
Yeah, I was really interested in that part.
It comes back to what we were saying before about creating that immersive environment, even without actually being around English speakers. And technology can really help with this, right?
Totally.
Like apps for language exchange, online forums, even streaming services with subtitles.
There's so much out there.
Right. Like in the script, they talk about Marco from Spain, and he basically made like his own little English world at home, reading news in English, watching English YouTubers, even talking to friends online from other countries.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's like bringing the English-speaking world to you.
You don't even have to get on a plane.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into the script's like final challenge, focus on output.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just understand English. You got to use it, by speaking or writing.
Yeah, that's where the real learning happens, I think. Getting out there and actually using the language. I know it can be scary at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
The script suggests a few things you can try, like recording yourself speaking and then listening back to see what you can improve.
Well, that's a good one.
Or joining a speaking group, or even just writing like a short paragraph in English every day.
I like that.
Just little things to get you practicing,
The key is to find what works for you and then make it a habit. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference in the long run.
And as we start wrapping up this deep dive here, I think one of the most important things to remember is learning English, it's a journey, right? And every little thing you do, it brings you closer to your goals.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. I mean, we've talked about so much, right? Like from that whole why thing to making your own little English world. But what really sticks out to me is how much the script is all about, like, doing stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally. You can't just sit there and hope you'll learn English.
Right. You got to get out there and use it. And remember how we talked about making mistakes? The script wants us to think about those differently, too.
Yeah. They're not like the end of the world.
They're actually how you get better.
Like little stepping stones.
Yeah, I love that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into learning English, I have one question for you. And it kind of goes back to that output thing we were talking about. What's one small step you're going to take this week to actually use your English?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Could be anything, really. Record yourself talking for a minute, write an email in English, even just chat with someone online.
It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing.
Exactly. Just something small but consistent.
Like we were saying before, 5 minutes a day, it all adds up.
We've explored a ton of tips today and heard some pretty inspiring stories. I bet there are a few that really resonated with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So think about those and how you can use them in your own learning. And remember, Learning English, it should be fun, not a chore.
Totally. It's an adventure.
Embrace those challenges, you
Yeah.
know, celebrate how far you've come, and never stop exploring. Happy learning, everyone.